I thought I'd finally caught a break when I bought the cabin. It was cheap, far cheaper than anything else in the area, tucked deep in the pine forests of northern Arizona, where cell service vanished and silence pressed in from every direction. The realtor called it a simple retreat and avoided my questions about why no one had lived there in years. I didn't push. I signed the papers, took the keys, and told myself that solitude was exactly what I needed. The cabin looked ordinary enough when I arrived. Weathered logs, a sagging porch, and a stone chimney stained black with age. Still, the moment I stepped inside, an unsettling feeling crept over me, as if the walls were holding their breath. The air smelled faintly of smoke and earth, not unpleasant but old. I spent the afternoon unpacking, brushing aside the unease, blaming it on exhaustion and the long drive. That night, as the forest outside sank into total darkness, the sounds began. At first it was just the familiar groan of wood settling, the kind every old structure makes. Then came something else, slow, measured footsteps beneath the floor. Not scurrying like an animal, not random but careful, as though someone was pacing in a space that shouldn't have existed. I stood frozen in the middle of the room listening, counting each step until the noise stopped directly beneath me. Sleep never came. At dawn, pale light crept through the windows, and with it came a fragile sense of courage. I searched the cabin from end to end, telling myself I would prove my fears wrong. That was when I noticed the rug near the fireplace, thicker and newer than the rest of the room. When I pulled it aside, a square outline revealed itself in the floor. A trapdoor. The hinges screamed softly as I lifted it, releasing a rush of cold air that smelled of damp soil and time. A narrow staircase descended into darkness. I don't know why I went down instead of leaving. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper pulling me forward. At the bottom, a single lantern flickered to life, illuminating a woman standing calmly in the shadows. She wore traditional Apache clothing, her long black hair falling straight down her back. Her eyes were steady, unafraid, as if she had known I would come. She looked at me, tilted her head slightly, and spoke with quiet certainty. "You finally came back," she said. "My husband." My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I couldn't move. Every instinct told me to turn around and run, but my legs refused to listen. The woman didn't step closer or raise her voice. She simply watched me, as if panic was something she had seen many times before. The lantern between us cast long shadows on the stone walls, revealing symbols carved deep into the rock, their edges worn smooth by age. I demanded to know who she was and how she got down there, my voice shaking despite my attempt to sound in control. She answered calmly, telling me her name was Atsa. She said the basement had always been her place, long before the cabin existed, long before the trees around us had grown tall. When I told her she was wrong, that I had just bought this land, she gave me a sad smile, the kind reserved for children who don't yet understand. According to her, the cabin wasn't something I had purchased. It was something I had returned to. She spoke of a promise made between a man and the land, a vow passed quietly through bloodlines rather than written records. My family name, she said, had been bound to this place generations ago, tied by oath and spirit. I laughed at that, told her it was impossible, but the sound echoed weakly in the narrow space, convincing neither of us. She gestured to the walls, and as I looked closer, I recognized shapes. Beneath the carvings, marks, hidden beneath dust and soot that mirrored symbols I'd once seen in an old journal belonging to my grandfather. I had thought they were meaningless sketches, doodles from a fading mind. Seeing them here made my stomach twist. Atsa said the man who first built the cabin carried my name and my blood, and that every one of his descendants had been drawn back when the land called for them. I tried to leave after that, desperate for fresh air and reason. I climbed the stairs, burst out the front door, and got into my truck without looking back. The road stretched ahead of me, but no matter how long I drove, the trees never changed. Every turn led me back to the same dirt path, the same familiar clearing, the same cabin waiting in silence. When I finally stepped out, shaking and exhausted, Atsa was standing on the porch. "You can walk away," she said gently, "but you cannot truly leave." As night fell again, the cabin seemed to close in around me, and for the first time, I began to wonder if she wasn't lying at all, if the land itself had been waiting for me to remember. By the third day, the cabin no longer felt like an empty structure of wood and stone. It felt aware. The floorboards creaked in response to my movements. The wind pressed against the windows, as if listening, and the forest beyond the porch stood unnaturally still. Atsa moved through the cabin without hesitation now, no longer confined to the basement. She touched broken things and made them whole again, straightening warped shelves, rekindling ashes in the fireplace without flame or effort. I stopped asking how she did these things, because the answers no longer mattered. She told me the land was older than memory, wounded by being taken, divided, and sold like something without a spirit. Long ago, her people had bound a guardian to it, someone who would remain when everything else was stripped away. My ancestor had agreed to that role, tying his bloodline to the place so the land would never be abandoned entirely. Atsa was not a prisoner, nor a wife in the way I understood it. She was a keeper of the vow, the one who remembered when the men forgotten by history could not. That night, the cabin showed me what happened to those who fled. I didn't sleep. I dreamed with my eyes open. I saw men who looked like me running through the trees, their faces twisted with fear as the forest swallowed them. Their names faded, their lives unraveled, until even their footprints vanished. They weren't punished out of anger, but erased out of necessity, as if the land could not afford to remember those who betrayed it. When morning came, I stood on the porch with the weight of that knowledge pressing on my chest. Atsa joined me, her presence steady, patient. She told me I had a choice. Staying meant letting go of the life I planned, the world beyond the forest, the person I thought I was. Leaving meant becoming another lost echo, another unanswered question in some distant record. I looked at the trees, at the cabin, at the place that had already begun to shape me. For the first time, I understood that buying the cabin had never been the beginning of this story. It was only the return. I stepped back inside, not because I was forced, but because something within me settled into place. Atsa nodded, not in triumph, but in relief. "Now we remember together," she said. As the sun dipped behind the trees and the forest breathed again, the cabin felt warmer, quieter. It didn't feel like a trap anymore. It felt like a responsibility and, strangely, like home.